Good morning. You guys had enough coffee yet? That's a no. Okay. Moving right along. Glad to be with you this morning. Just so grateful to the folks here at the Blount County Partnership, to the Chamber, and just the relationships that I've had the fortune of building with many of the people in this room, and many of you I don't know. I hope that I do get the chance to know you. Going to dive right in this morning. I was given this title and asked to speak on how to not kill your team. And so, does anyone have trouble with this title? Because the underlying assumption in this is that there's people out there killing their team. And that scares me a little bit. You know, it makes that assumption, and so it just kind of concerns me a little bit. And speaking of death, has anybody seen the new Deadpool Wolverine movie? Nobody? Okay, well then the rest of my jokes won't make sense because they're all related to that movie. And just in case you're wondering, it is violent and there is a lot of death in it. If you will, please take a moment and silence your cell phones. Please keep them handy though. You will need them for some instant polling that I'm going to do of the group today. So keep them handy, but if you will, silence them. And then if needed, silence your neighbor, whatever you have to do during the presentation. So a couple of quick questions for you. All human relationships depend on one foundational thing in order to succeed. Anybody know what it is?
Don't kill your team.
What's that? Trust. Boom. Nailed it. Communication is the vehicle by which we build trust. True or false? All right, good. This is an audience participation question. Yes. Yes, absolutely true. It's how we build or break trust. Communication consists of three primary types. Do we know what the typical types of communication are? You didn't know you're going right to school, did you? Verbal, yep. Nonverbal, what else? Anybody know this one? This was a relatively new one for me recently. Paraverbal. Anybody know that one? Okay, I'll tell you what those are. So verbal are the words you speak. Nonverbal are things like body language, eye contact, things like that. Paraverbal is your tone of voice. It's the manner of intent. It's the structure of your words. Those are paraverbal. So according to recent science, they follow the 7-55-38. So 7% of the words that you're actually speaking are communicating, are being received accurately or being received the way they're being presented. 55% is your body language and how you're speaking. And then the other 38% are the paraverbals, inflection, tone, and things of that nature. Humans are efficient beings. Now, anybody who's seen the traffic on I-40 in West Knoxville knows that there's nothing efficient about that, right? Humans do not present very efficient in many ways. However, our brains are by design made to be efficient. And so in order for our brains to function at high levels of efficiency for survival and success, what are some of the ways the brain does this for us? Anybody know? Anybody know what ways this does it for us? Yes?
Well, it throws away or ignores most of the sensory input.
Okay, yes. So we have voluntary actions, involuntary actions, right? We have muscle memory, sensory input, etc., right? These are the ways in which our brains actually operate. So we operate on this level of efficiency. Now, what does this have to do with how to not kill your team? I'm getting there, I promise. So each person develops their own physical, social, and success mechanisms for life and work. What are some negative and positive examples of? What are some ways in which we develop, some people may call them coping mechanisms, but operational things, way physically, socially, that we want to experience and see and feel success? Anybody have anything off the top of their head? Bueller? Okay. So things like comparison. These are some negative examples. Comparison, judgment, Critical analysis, we're critical. We analyze things, we see things, we make judgments on them, and then we criticize them or critique them for either improvement, or we critique them in a judgmental way. Prejudice, superiority or elitism, things like this. These are the ways in which we develop socially, culturally, etc. And then some positive ways. We do this positively by fostering belonging, sharing, service to one another, generosity, diligence. Anybody have any other examples in way this may show up in the world? Gratitude. Any other examples? Sorry? Joy, yeah. We operate in this world that seems to be a ton of tug of war between this judgment and generosity, giving and taking. And we operate on teams with human beings that are operating all in the same way, in the same manner. And we find that there are so many times that teams struggle to just get along. Right? Common sense isn't what? It's just not common. It's just not common. And we're in a world and a society and a generation where the advancements of technology and communication and all the conveniences that we have in our path, and now with the onset of AI, we are more challenged mentally and emotionally, physically, and every other way than we have ever been in the history of humankind. The expectations on human beings are unreal. And our teams are experiencing that and feeling it every single day, and you are feeling that. You are feeling and dealing with that yourself. Oh, I was going to bait this and I dropped it. So there's one practice or behavior that served as a root cause for the death of healthy teamwork. And any ideas what that may be, everybody? Wow, I don't even have to do the rest. We're done here. Mic drop. Yes, assumption. Now, everybody knows, and we're not going to say it because this is a PG class, everybody knows what happens when you assume, right? Okay, so just think it. We're not going to say it today, class, okay? Assumption. What is assumption? What is that? Assumptions are the beliefs or ideas taken for granted without proof or insufficient evidence. So we have thoughts and ideas and beliefs, and we come to conclusions based on a limited amount of data or a limited amount of information. And then we take action on those things. And so they are most often shaped by our experiences, culture, and our knowledge. Now, not a single one of you have the same experience, background, or culture or knowledge as me, and I don't have the same as you. You are all as unique as your thumbprint. So how in the world do we get teams to get along, act right, be good humans, and operate without high levels of assumption? Let's see if we can figure that out. So survey number 1, grab your phones. This is a one-question survey. It should not stress you out. And the way this will work, let me give a little instruction while you're doing it. Survey, the left QR code will let you take the survey, and then if you're interested in the results after everybody takes it, in a minute or two, we'll give everybody a chance to take it, and then you can view the results and hang on to that for your purposes. It's a very simple one-question survey. There will be 4 surveys in here. The other 3, I believe, have 3 questions each. Okay, has everybody had a chance to take it? Give you just a minute. So the question is, how often do you find that assumptions impact your daily interactions? Some of our assumptions are really good. Some of our assumptions are absolutely fair. Some of our assumptions are absolutely necessary to function, because we have to discard certain sensory input that isn't necessary. So we have to make assumptions. When the light turns green, I get to go and the other people are going to stop. That's a fair, honest assumption, right? Doesn't always happen, but it is a fair assumption. All right, everybody's had a chance to take that one-question survey. Feel free to scan for the results if you would like, so you have that link. This is my first time doing this way, and so I'm hoping this is going to work as I intend. If you need the results later, I'll be glad to send out those result URLs to everybody after the class. So here are some positives. Some positives is that it has roots in our commitment to community and belonging. We make contracts for a reason, right? We put together contracts because we are going to operate under some clarity of what we're going to agree to do, and then we're going to sign our names, and then we're going to make the assumption that you're actually going to do that. And then we have an entire legal system predicated on the fact that people will not do what they said they're going to do. Okay? So, but it has its roots in our sincere desire to belong, to connect, to be a part of something that it matters and is meaningful. It's an efficient mental and emotional shortcut. Just like I said, the red light, I'm going to stop, you're going to go, I'm going to stop. And then it requires high levels of self-awareness to manage well. Does anybody not know what the word self-awareness is? This has been a word that's become very popular, but if you're not aware of what self-awareness is, you need to become self-aware about self-awareness. Okay, you get it. So here's some of the negatives. It's a key component to the erosion of trust. When I was thinking about how to kill your team, how to not kill your team, let's get this straight, how to not kill your team, I was faced with a list, a litany of things that I could have gone, here's the top 10 things, here's this, here's that, and told you all of these things. And when I boiled it all down, every single one of them were built upon this one thing and its assumption. This is at the root of so many things in our organizations. So it's responsible for more conflict than genuine disagreement. We can disagree. It's okay to disagree and have conversation and dialogue. But when we pass the point of going from disagreement into assumption, we've put fuel on conflict. We're just pouring gas on the flame. It's also a key contributor to reduced engagement or killing teamwork. So here's what we're going to look at. We're going to explore 3 areas of assumption and how they impact your team. This is everything we're getting ready to do. We're going to look at your thoughts, assumption in your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Those are the 3 areas. As a part of our Dream 4 training model, we look at thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become what? Habits. Habits determine your what? Your character. Your character. You become characterized by your repeated behaviors. Right? Repeated behaviors, habits become your character. Does anybody want to be characterized in a negative way? Has anybody ever been unfairly characterized in a negative way? I know I have. If you've been around the sun a few times, you have. Okay? Anybody ever been bullied in school? You've been characterized in a negative way. Right? So, these determine the habits and ultimately the health of your team. So here's the goal. We're going to raise some self-awareness. We're going to open some dialogue. And we want to look at some ways we can change habits to improve your team health, to keep your team engaged and, likewise, not dead. So let's look at assumptive thoughts. Second survey. I know, keep them handy. I'm keeping you engaged, guys, keeping you engaged. So 3 questions on this one. So I woke up this morning and made the assumption that I could actually see, so I have to get these. How often do you realize that your initial thoughts about someone were based on assumptions? Do you believe assumptions in your thoughts impact your decision making? And then how confident are you in identifying and challenging your own assumptions? Little self-evaluation there. Take a moment and answer those. in the interest of time, I'm not going to review the results together. I would love to do that with you. But because I want to make these links transparent, there's so much we could dive in and talk about these questions. But I really want them to just raise your awareness and then look at how common these things are. These kind of questions, on a daily basis, let's do just a straw poll show of hands real quick. On a daily basis, how often do you recognize or are you aware that you're either making assumptions or other people are making assumptions? Well, that's not a fair question. Let me change that. Do you, on a daily basis, recognize when you're making assumptions? Yes or no? Right? How many of us still do it anyway? Okay? Yeah. So it's habitual. If it's habitual for you as a leader or a owner of your company or wherever my HR people are, like if you're doing it, how often do you think your people are doing it? All right, did everybody get a chance to do the result link? Good? Okay. So the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's actually taken place. Anybody agree with this? Or as Cool Hand Luke said, what we have here is a failure to communicate. So let's watch this clip. You remember the scratch?
Yeah.
It was a scratch! It was a scratch! So, our relationships are often predicated on very immediate reactions to things that we see, observe, and in other people. So what these create are assumptive thoughts, and our thoughts tend to rely on the past experience, stereotypes, partial information, and this thing called biases. And they're often the foundation of our assumptions. Now I'm going to make a little disclaimer here. I'm getting ready to go into a little bit of a nerd zone where we're going to talk a little bit about these biases and what they are, but I promise you it's going to get practical. I'm going to keep it as practical as I can, but you do need to be aware of what these things are called so that you can recognize them and have a term to associate them with. So confirmation bias, anchoring bias, in-group bias, and availability heuristics. Fun word. So what is confirmation bias? It's favoring information that it confirms your existing beliefs. All right? So basically you see what you want to see. If you had a preconceived notion of something, you are going to ascribe that to that person or situation. You're bringing that history with you. It's a part of that efficiency mechanism. If it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, then what? It's a duck. So your brain is very efficient that way, but this gets us into trouble in our organizations and with our teams quite often. So they did this job for my competition, they must be good at it here. That's a grand assumption on a lot of levels. We're going to hire this person based on the fact that they did it for the competition. We don't know if they're a cultural fit. We have a resume and we have a conversation. We don't have a really good picture of this human being and how they're going to fit in our organization. So therefore, our hiring practices and our decision making have to be more thorough, and they cannot be predicated on assumptions. I saw John in his office. I know they're talking bad about me. I know John doesn't like me, right? So then we're sitting at our desk, or your team member's at their desk, or they're coming in. If you're the HR manager, director, they're coming in your office saying, well, I know that they're doing this and they're doing that. Like, this is confirmation bias at play. He looks homeless, therefore he's not safe. Right? Here's the converse, though. He dresses really well. He must be rich, or he must be smart, or he must be successful, or he or she, right? So we make assumptions based on things we know. Oh, they're wearing this watch, or they're wearing this shoes, or they have this brand, they drive this car. We make assumptions. Anchoring bias. We rely heavily on the first piece of information we encountered. This is, you never get a second chance at a first impression, right? So your first impression is the one that is most likely to prevail unless you're really open and aware and really paying attention. You're going to make an assumption very quickly. And so when I met him, he was so rude to his wife. He's a terrible husband. You had one snapshot in one moment, and you saw one bad moment in the person's life, and now we're going to cast judgment or criticism on the one little picture that we just saw. Right? Their resume has too many work history entries. They won't work well here. Someone's changed jobs. Now, is that an indicator? Is it something that you need to pay attention to? Yes. I mean, pay attention to that. Don't ignore that. But it doesn't mean that the resume goes on the other pile automatically. Look for other things. So when you're looking at your team members and your existing team, you may hire said person with very low expectations. Well, they're just not going to be here long. They're not going to last. So how are you going to treat them? How are you going to talk to them? How are you going to deal with them? How are you going to coach them? How are you going to manage them? You're going to be operating from a level of assumption. Is this making sense? Okay. In-group bias, giving preferential treatment to members of their own group. Okay, this would be things like you allow yourself to be swayed by the things you have in common. Oh, we both drive BMWs. I know Eric here, we both like Porsche, right? We both like Porsches, right? So we're going to make decisions in our relationship based on an assumption that we belong to a particular group or we fit. So they went to college together, he gets all the best leads. You'll see this in your organization. You'll see decisions being made by this in-group bias. They're assuming a performance level based on we went to this school, we did this thing, we were in the same fraternity, in the same sorority, we grew up in the same town, right? Well, he's from Blount County, he must be a good guy, right? And there's a lot of good people in Blount County, are there not? A lot of good people in Blount County. But we can't make the assumption that they are, just because, whatever. He is one of us, we can trust him or her. They're one of us. They belong to the club, they go to the right places, they wear the right thing, they're in the same group. Availability heuristics. This is overestimating the importance of information that's immediately or readily available to you. Okay? So basically, you believe the most recent or most available information. John got laid off, everyone's going to lose their jobs. So the most available information is they're doing layoffs, therefore I'm going to lose my job. That's an assumption. Make sense? Sometimes it's a fair one. Let's be honest. Sometimes not saying that's not a possibility. It doesn't remove the possibility you're going to lose your job, but it's not a guarantee either. You're making assumptions. I won't swim in the ocean because I will get bit by a shark. This is the news reporting situation. More reporting is done about shark bites than on airplane parts hitting people and killing them. So the most available information is there's more information on shark bites. So we're going to be more scared. You're not worried about airplane parts falling from the sky and killing you, are you? You're not walking out of the building doing this. But you will say, I ain't going in that ocean. I'm going to get bit by a shark. Why? Because the availability of that information and that statistic is more prevalent in your mind. Politics. Do I need to say anything else? Right? I'm just going to leave it there. So, what does that look like Prince William is doing? What does that look like? Dude, come on, Prince. What he's actually doing. Now look, we've got to give the Brits a little bit of a break because they do a lot of things wrong. They drive on the wrong side of the road. Okay? And they count we do 1, 2, 3. They do it like that, and that's a problem. That's problematic. It's just problematic. So this is how our biases get formed. And now, with the advent of AI, and you can create any narrative that you want, the assumption level is going through the roof. where we will not be able to distinguish between reality and fiction. This is a present conversation that we must address and figure out how, as humans, we're going to combat. I'm not here to talk about AI at the moment. Think of a recent situation where you or someone made an assumption about a person's behavior or intentions. How did these assumptions affect you or their perceptions and interactions? Here's the thing. I want you to find a person next to you, and I want you to answer this question. Basically, let me summarize this. When was the last time that you assumed and it bit you in the butt? Okay? When was the last time you made an assumption and it just didn't go well? So, ready, and talk amongst yourselves. All right. Let's wrap it up. All right, so I obviously made an assumption here that I could get your attention, it's not. There we go. Gotcha. Okay, good. So let's bring this back now. Not to be too self-deprecating, but does anybody want to share one of these? Nobody. The next talk will be on transparency and openness and vulnerability. That will be the next conversation. There's a reason why, right? There's a reason why you don't want to share that. You'll share it with one person, but you don't want to share it with 50. Right? Because there's a level of maybe a tinge of guilt, a little bit of shame. Now, did anybody hear or see anybody not talking in this room? No, because we all have done it. We've all done it. One of the first steps to overcoming assumption is being honest that it exists and that we can actually talk about it. We have to be open and honest. It can't just live in our thoughts. It can't just be a thing that lives in our head that it's an underlying assumption that everybody's going to assume. Do we see the insanity in that? Among your teams, you have to bring this up. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. So what's at stake here in our thoughts? Impaired decision making. Everything lives in our heads and you're going to affect your relationships. Common theme, you're going to hear this multiple times today. That assumptions based on biases lead to errors in judgment and essential communication. This does not just have team impact. This impacts the bottom line of your business. This impacts the fiscal nature and the survival of your own business. Relationships, they affect your interpersonal interactions, business decisions, and daily life. This impacts every decision you make with your customer, client, whoever it is. Right? Trust and team dynamics. Trust is crucial for effective teamwork, collaboration, and communication. If we're eroding trust through assumption, then we cannot expect there to be a lack of hostility in the office. At the very least, you're going to get passive-aggressive. At the very least, you're going to get passive-aggressive. Trust and team dynamics. Trust is crucial, and in conflict, biases erode trust and leads to conflict, which we just talked about. Now, here's a couple things I recommend. These are a little bit more on the personal side, and here's why. It's because of the activity that we just did. Until you as a leader become committed to evaluating and self-assessing your own assumptions, you cannot lead your team to do otherwise. You're just not going to be successful. So it starts with some self-evaluation. Take a personal inventory. And by the way, you're going to get a PDF of this entire presentation. So write notes. If that helps you, it reinforces your learning, great. But you're also going to get a copy of this. So recognize and understand your personal biases. Take personal inventory. Write a list. Ask a close friend. Do what you just did here. Have conversations around assumption. Raise the awareness of it. Critical thinking. These are simple. I tell folks, some of my folks that I work with that are here today, I tell them all the time, the only reason I have a job is because people didn't listen to their kindergarten teacher. Okay? It's the only reason I have a job. I'm thankful that you don't listen to your kindergarten teacher, so I've gotten used to eating and things. But here's some questions. What do you actually know? What do I actually know? Your head is spinning, but what do I actually know? This is what I know. John was in the office and he was talking to somebody. That's what I know. I have no idea what they're talking about. I have no idea what the substance of it was. That's what I know. And then what are the gaps in my knowledge? What do I need to know? Okay, well, I'm feeling fearful that my job is on the line. I need to know where I stand with my superiors. I need to know if I'm doing a good job. Right? Those are conversations that reduce assumptions. And then what is the right or healthy response? Going in and yelling at John is not the right response. Right? Passive-aggressively banging on your keyboard and hammering out an email to your boss telling him how much everybody hates you in the office, not a good response. But we get those, don't we? It happens every day. Gossip, backbiting, political infactions in an office, water cooler talk, all of this predicated on assumptions. All of these behaviors that we're trying to get rid of, predicated on assumptions. So what are some assumptive words? Next survey. How often do you think assumptions influence your conversations? Have you ever found yourself making assumption or statements in conversations? How important do you believe it is to address and clarify assumptions during communication? Now, most of us in this room are going to give mental assent, as they call it, to the right answers to these. But I want to challenge you to think about not what you want the answer to be or what you think the answer should be, but I want you to think about what your actual practice is. Think about what you're actually doing. I'll give you a minute to take it and then a minute to view the results and see what everybody in the room is thinking. Just out of curiosity, has anybody already seen the results? Has anybody? Who did? You have? Could you tell us what the results are?
Looks like we're all being pretty honest.
Okay.
Very often, or often, very often, too honest.
Okay. Yeah. So we should be comforted by the fact, is it the phrase misery loves company? Like, we know these things. This is the irony of being human, though, isn't it? It's that we know these things. I'm not telling you anything that you probably don't know today. So the question as we get in the next little bit that we're going to walk through this is, what are we going to change? What's going to look different after today because of this information? Your assumptions are your windows on the world. Scrub them off every once in a while or the light won't come in. Anybody hate dirty windows? Like, dirty glass annoys me a little bit. It's a little bit of a thing for me. I just don't like dirty glass. If it's a window, you're supposed to see through it. We need to pay attention to where assumption has created a film on our lens of the world. Because let's get really real. This is affecting human relationships on the deepest level. There are friendships at stake. There are families at stake. There's marriages at stake. There's communities at stake. There's a lot of assumptions that are leading to a lot of violence in our world. People are hurting, and they're making assumptions that either their life doesn't matter, their relationship doesn't matter, my goals don't matter, my work ethic doesn't matter. This goes to the deepest levels of society for us. Let's watch this.
Hey, I was on this date the other night, and we were at this restaurant.
All right, guys, you guys ready to get started?
Hang on a second.
Trip, you ready to get started, buddy?
Okay. Hey, you guys, we're all here. We should start. All right. Thanks for coming, guys. I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about some ideas for the marketing strategy this year. So, if you got one, just throw it out there. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, how long is this meeting supposed to last? The schedule wasn't exactly clear. Should
be out of here at 30. Is that approximate or?
Hey guys, sorry I'm a couple minutes late, got caught in traffic.
7 minutes, actually.
Couple, two. That's what we're doing, is we're just coming up with some ideas for our new marketing strategy. Anyone?
I think we should implement Pinterest.
Ooh, that's a fun idea.
What about a publicity event in the park?
Interesting. But how are you going to plan around the weather? What if it rains?
So we'll party in the rain.
Okay, just want to emphasize, there's no bad ideas here, we're just brainstorming. So.
Yeah, I'm just really thinking it'll be a huge waste of money to try to plan around the weather.
Yeah, okay, we get your concerns. Nancy, thank you.
I've always wanted to see rain fall down all at once in a big splash instead of small drops on the top. Irrigation system.
Okay. Terry?
Well, I have an idea from my previous job that I had last year. Let me take that back a little bit. I have this wonderful idea, but it doesn't really make sense unless I just take it back a second and let's go over it together. It was like 3 weeks ago that I remember he said something that I couldn't understand.
Hold on a second, Terry, hold on. Here's what we need to do, okay? Lauren, you got this? We do a video submission contest on YouTube.
Oh, that's been done.
It'll be on Facebook, it'll be on Pinterest, it'll be on Twitter.
We do something with technology, we lose the senior demographic.
So, you guys wanna see an example?
Should we be moving on to the next topic? I mean, sorry, quarter after.
That's funny.
Up there, because you're not gonna, I want you to see all the details. We have cable, does this cable work?
And it's power.
I don't know if on the TV, there's an
This one.
18 mic.
That cord's not going to be long
on
enough.
the back.
That remote.
But anytime, guys.
It's still working.
I got big markers.
Wait, turn what off?
Okay, I got it working.
Okay, now imagine 20 of those floating around the web. You actually, do you wanna watch it one more time?
No, please.
Trev, I think you're onto something with this idea. I really like it. Carol, did you get that down? Sorry, what is C-test sub YT pros?
Well, I'm abbreviating to make room for all these great ideas in the contest. Uploading it to YouTube, funniest, and you get a prize.
Wait, what are the other ideas?
And time.
Wait, where y'all going?
We still have 100% of the things to accomplish.
So there is way too much to unpack in that video, but it was way too good to not show you. Couple of things. Where did you see assumption in that video? All over the place, but specifically, what are some of the things that stood out to you?
The weather lady.
How so?
The weather lady.
Yeah, but how so? What?
She assumed whatever they do is gonna rain.
Yes, correct. That's right. Yeah, good one. Any others? Any other observations?
Well, they kind of all assumed that their idea was the best.
Was there any direct communication about why you were having the meeting or what the actual goals were? We just assumed that we're going to sit down and have a meeting and everything's going to go well. And then everybody's just kind of, the inmates are running the asylum kind of thing. So designing what we do and designing our communications for clarity and consistency is how we start removing assumptions from our words and from things like something as simple as a meeting. Clarity and consistency. Everything, I know my people here, hear that all the time. So, assumptive words. This involves making statements that imply assumptions about the listener's beliefs, knowledge, or feelings about a direct subject. This comes down to the practical elements of what you say and how you say it, knowing your audience, and anticipating acceptance. So let's break this down really quick. So what you say and how you say it assumptions influence the language you use, leading to biased or neutral word choices. They influence the emotional response or trigger a person's experience, and they influence the tone, manner, and timing of your words. So everything, we talked about this with the different types of communication earlier, right? The verbal, nonverbal, paraverbal. Everything you say and everything that's being communicated, email, text, etc., has to be filtered through the lens of where are the assumptions, right? Somebody says to whoever works here at the chamber, they say, hey, go downstairs and set up the room for success in 90. Okay? Go down and set up the room. That's an instruction. What is the assumption underlying that statement? They know how to do it. What's another assumption? They know when. Where. They know how many people. So we are highly dependent today on very pithy, succinct communication that is often riddled with assumption. Take the trash out. Right? Put the toilet seat down. No, well, that one's pretty clear. That one actually is pretty clear. Right? So we also assume familiarity. This comes up in using jargon or slang with peers. That's unclear to everyone around us. Right? We just assume a level of familiarity with someone just because we have one thing in common. Or we assume that because I have a title on my desk, that means I get to do A, B, and C, and we're making assumptions of trust in the relationship. Maybe you're new in an organization and you have a significant role, but you're making assumptions about your understanding of how that's supposed to work. Or you're leveraging your authority or your title more than the actual vested authority from the people under you. They're not trusting you yet. They're trying, they want to probably, but they're not trusting you. You can kill a team very quickly with that assumption. And then assuming expertise, technical terms used with professionals versus laymen. So in the general public, that we walk into a room and we think that these are my people and I can just way shoot over their head. I can just talk way over their head, I can use all these terms and they're automatically going to understand. Not necessarily true. So we have to be curious and open before we make these kinds of assumptions with our words. This gets us either started on the wrong foot with a lot of people, but it can also undo relationships over time. This happens more often than not in the deeper personal relationships. You've been working with somebody 20 years. You've been married to somebody for 20 years. You make a lot of assumptions. A lot of assumptions. That you know what they're thinking. That you know what they value. That you know what's going on in their lives. That you know what is hurting them and helping them. That you know these things. You're assuming that you know and that these things are impacting how your decisions and your words are coming out every single day. And then you have to know your audience. Assumptions about the audience, and this is their knowledge level, cultural background, they shape your tone and your formality and approach. So assuming formality, where you walk into a room and you assume that you have to be something, you have to present yourself a certain way to them. Or you put on airs, as they say, right? Or assuming informality, you're too casual, you're too relaxed, you're being too friendly with someone that you don't have that level of familiarity and trust with. Does that make sense? This is a tender balance. This takes self-awareness. It takes the ability for you to walk into a room and look and go, okay, what's the appropriate thing? You're not becoming a chameleon, by the way. This is not about by changing who you are. It's about being understanding of other people and being sensitive to other people, having a touch of humility about you to be able to assess, okay, is this appropriate? Is what I'm about to say helpful? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Are these things going to be helpful to this group, if the words coming out of my mouth? This one is big. This is huge. Is that we often, especially if we're comfortable with the person, we tend to do this a lot. We imply the certainty about a person's thoughts, beliefs, desires, or values. It's often unintentional, but it can lead to misunderstanding and a devaluation of the relationship. It's often not, you're not trying to do this, but it happens. Somebody comes back off vacation. You must have had the best time, and and everything was a freaking disaster for them. Everything fell apart. It was not the kind of thing, right? You must be so excited that you got that sale. They may be completely overwhelmed because they just sold a project that is way over their head. Is that making sense? So we're implying that the conclusion that they must feel based on your own assumption in your head of how you would feel if you were in their shoes. How often do we do this? All right, give me something. Yes? No? Yes? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not alone. I do it all the time. And let me tell you, let me put a little personal anecdote in here. Creating this challenged me in so many personal ways. This is not something I have mastered. This is something that I desperately need to work on every single day. So I am not up here telling you that I've got this all figured out. What I'm telling you is that I'm in the same human condition that you are. And yes. Okay. Tell them I said hello. So what are some phrases that you hear on a regular basis that indicate assumption within your team or organization? What are some of your cultural cliches that are go around your place that you hear that are predicated on assumption? What are some things you hear?
As we all know.
Oh, as we all know. That's a great one. Which is almost the same as saying, well, obviously, right?
Imagine this.
Imagine this. Okay? What else? What phrases do you hear? Sorry?
You'll be so excited about this.
Yes, you'll be so excited. Yeah. Let me just tell you how you're going to feel. Let me just tell you how that's going to feel. I will ask the questions. Yes. You ever see that? You guys haven't seen that one. It's from The Office. Any Office fans? Okay. What other phrases do you tend to hear? Okay. Seeing none, moving right along. So what is at stake here? Here's what happens when we use assumptive words. There's just going to be drama. Now let's not lie to ourselves here, okay? Life is drama. When I do interviews for organizations and I'm asking them what their values are and what they're looking for in their next position, and I hear, well, I just don't do drama. That's the person that does the drama. Okay? Look, we all do drama. When the alarm goes off in the morning, you're getting hit with emotions, and it's dramatic. Sometimes it's traumatic. Okay? It's dramatic. Getting out on the interstate, driving around town, it's dramatic. The question isn't whether drama exists. The question is, do you have healthy communication skills to overcome the challenges that life brings? Because life is bringing you stuff. There will be distrust. Assumptive words bring distrust. People can feel ignored. It damages trust. They don't want to be open. They certainly don't want to be vulnerable. And it was obviously evident when I said to you guys earlier, anybody want to share any of the ways you failed at this? Right? No, nobody wants to do that. There will be disengagement. Genuine dialogue and the exchange of ideas. Businesses are built on ideas. People and teams need to be able to share their ideas. Not every idea is a winner, but they need to feel safe enough to be able to do it. And then the people sharing those ideas need to be self-aware enough to know when to share it, how to share it, etc. It's a two-way street. But it also leads to defensive postures. People feeling like they have to defend their position. I have to defend I'm scared I'm going to lose my job, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to be defensive about it. I'm going to have to feel like I have to prove to you that I'm worthy. And when you have an environment like that, when you have team members like that, you have a trust issue. You just have trust issues. And that's okay, by the way. It's okay to have trust issues. It's not okay to ignore them, sweep them under the rug, and pretend they don't exist. So here are some strategies for you. There's four strategies in general. Open-ended questions. Anybody know what I mean by open-ended questions versus closed questions? Okay, good. Use inclusive language. Choose words that are inclusive and don't presume the listener's stance or knowledge, right? We see this, again, a lot. You shop here, you go there, you must vote. You're from Tennessee, you must vote this way, you must think this way, you must have this belief. You're a Democrat, you must believe this. You're a Republican, you must believe that. You're an independent, you believe, like, we pigeonhole and put people in buckets based on very large groupings. And then we assume good or bad things from them, bad intentions, etc. Practice active listening. This is a challenge for all of us, I think. Anybody know the difference between active and passive listening? Do you know the difference between that? Active listening is listening with the intent to understand. Passive listening is listening for the intent to respond. Avoid generalizations. Be specific in your statements and avoid generalizations. Like what you said, you're all going to be so excited for this change. It's very general. It's very broad brush. It's not helpful. So let's talk about some assumptive actions. Last survey, I think. Now, what I'm going to do right now, while you're taking the survey and then looking at the results, I'd like to just pause here and see if there's any observations, comments, or questions that you have so far about this before we go into assumptive actions. Any thoughts or questions that you have about this? About how to overcome assumptions, how to recognize them? Okay? What are some of the behaviors when assumptions are being made and distrust forms in an organization? What are some of the behaviors that are the most difficult to deal with? What are some of the things that you deal with every day? You're leaders. You have problems every single day. What are some of the team problems you're facing?
A lot of
Complaining.
complaining.
Okay. About workload, about what kind of things?
People doing things that others can't.
Okay.
There's several things you hear. But most of it is it's just complaining about their job. The other person doesn't do as much as they do.
Comparison. Yep. Yeah. So things are unfair or inequitable, right? So you get complaints about that. What other kind of symptoms do you guys see in teams where assumption can play a role?
Not a tattletale in my group.
Okay. Yeah. 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 So someone who feels the need to be the spokesperson for everybody else's problems, right? Well, I just wanted to tell you that, you know, I know you cared, you're concerned about this, and I just need to bring this to your attention, right? I just need to bring this to your attention because I know that this could really impact the team, and I really care about this place, and I love this place, and right? Now, are they wrong? Do they really care? Are they possibly genuine? Possibly, yeah. We can't assume that they're not genuine, but their behavior is not helpful. Does that make sense? So we don't want to draw a conclusion and be assumptive ourselves about their motives. We can be curious about that person's motives. We can also correct the behavior. Then we have to look and say, is there any truth to what they're saying? Is there any value in what they're saying? So we have to parse this out very practically, and that's how you as a leader work at parsing out the assumptions that people are making. A complaint is a symptom. It's a symptom of a root cause, which is generally centered around trust of some nature, and it comes from a source of either a lack of clarity or a lack of consistency in decision-making in the organization. Because if there's clarity and there's consistency, then we don't remove all assumption, but we remove a lot of it. All right. Anybody have the result link and want to tell us whether we're all on the same page? I'd love to know what somebody saw in the results on this one. Anybody do the results? Okay.
Pretty much says we all want to work on what we see our problems are.
Good. So there's 45, 50 people in this room that all want to work on this. How are you going to do that together? Who in this room can you trust or have a relationship with that you can go to, or someone at work can go to and say, you know what? This is a problem in my organization, or our organization, our department, and I'd like to figure out how we're going to fix it. It takes time, it'll take effort, but you have to decide whether you're committed to changing it. Assumptions are the termites of relationships. Henry Winkler, otherwise AKA the Fonz. So here's another video for us.
So there's people we can easily lose. Then there's Tom Sinkowski. He's useless. Gone. Sounds good to me. Who's peculiar? Milton Wadhams. Who's he?
You know, squirrely looking guy, mumbles a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can't actually find a record of him being a current employee here.
I looked into it more deeply, and I found that apparently what happened is that he was laid off 5 years ago, and no one ever told him about it.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
Great. So, Milton has been let go.
Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch. So he won't be receiving a paycheck anymore, so it'll just work itself out naturally.
We always like to avoid confrontation whenever possible. Problem is solved from your end.
I'd like to move us right along to a Peter Gibbons. Now, we had a chance to meet this young man, and boy, that's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
Ooh, yeah. I'm gonna have to go ahead and sort of disagree with you there. Yeah, he's been real flaky lately. And I'm just not sure that he's the caliber person that we would want for upper management. He's also been having some problems with his TPS reports. I'll handle this here. We feel that the problem isn't with Peter. It's that you haven't challenged him enough to get him really motivated.
There it is.
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Yeah, Bill, let me ask you a real quick question here. How much time would you say you spend each week dealing with these TPS reports?
Yeah.
Anybody seen this movie? It's called Office Space. It's pretty hilarious. So a little context here. The guy they're talking about as the upper management potential was a straight shooter in the first part of the movie. And then all of a sudden he just rebelled against the system, decided he wasn't coming in, kicked over his desk, just kind of went anti-establishment on the whole place. And all of a sudden now he's getting recognized for his terrible behavior, and they're going to put him in management because of this. Now, he's rebelling against a system that is a terrible system led by the guy in the glasses there. What kind of assumptive actions do you see going on in this scene? What are some of the things that you could just stand out to you? It's pretty obvious and, get it? I just did that, yeah. What's that?
It's all about how they feel.
Okay, so it's a very selfish perspective, okay? So there's the first assumption, first thing he says, well, this guy's no use. And the other guy across here said, well, good. He made a complete assumption that that evaluation was enough, and we're just going to fire the guy. All right? What's another assumption? Anybody see anything else in there?
Well, when they fix the glitch, it's going to work itself out.
Absolutely. This guy is not going to be communicated with that he's lost his job 5 years ago. And he's been collecting a paycheck for 5 years, and they've been slowly moving him to the basement. Okay? I mean, that's a masterclass in assumption right there. All right, so let's look at how our actions are playing out. Assumptive actions, this is what they do. Assumptions drive our actions towards others. They often lead to actions based on stereotypes and incomplete information. Sound familiar? Everything is about stereotypes, misinformation. So everything moves, it starts as a thought, it goes to a word, now we're acting on it. Sometimes it takes months for this to happen, sometimes it takes a split second for us to jump. It's called jumping to conclusions. Right? So decision-making challenges. Errors in judgment and timing, perpetuating dysfunction among the team. Let's see how this plays out. So assumptive actions make teams lethargic and disengaged. People are going to disconnect. You're going to see increases in complaining. Assumptions can lead to premature decisions without considering all the variables. We're not looking at a 360 view of the whole situation. So we are going to assume someone's ability based on their appearance, background, which leads to unfair treatment. So we can profile them in a heartbeat. Somebody comes in and maybe they've been fine for the first couple of months, and then all of a sudden they start showing a trend of being a little bit of a hot mess. Can't get there on time, a little more disheveled, a little more disorganized. And we're thinking, oh man, here we go, got another one. Came out of the gate, they were doing great at first, and now all of a sudden they're turning into a bad employee. We can make assumptions about that, or we can respond with curiosity and find out what's really going on. There's either a team problem, a business culture challenge, or that person's just going through something hard in their life. Now, you're not responsible for fixing all of their bad habits, but you can be caring and concerned enough to find out what they are. Making business decisions based on assumed market trends without adequate research. You hand this off to marketing and you just say, hey guys, I need a sales plan and this is how I want you to do it and this is where it is, go. But I need it by next week. That marketing plan is going to come back to you half-baked with a ton of assumptions in it. We could be setting unrealistic timelines and expectations on our teams that are putting them under unique pressures that they cannot live up to. So we have to maintain curiosity and get with our teams and say, okay, you don't have forever on this. This has to get done. There's a timeline, but let's be realistic about what it's going to take and when we can get it done. And when we'll overcome the challenges together and we'll take out the assumptions that you're going to do it and you know what I mean and you're reading my mind. Boy, do I see that a lot in a lot of organizations where leaders are expecting the people they hire, high qualified people, to read their minds. And then what they want to do is sit back and judge the results when they weren't clear to begin with of what the expectation was. It happens all the time. I see it all the time. Disconnects people that want to be heard, understood, and involved in decision making. If you're going to go to all the effort of hiring people, and you're going to go to all the effort of hiring highly qualified people, no matter what level in the organization, you better value what they think. Doesn't mean you have to act on everything they think, but you need to value it. Or they're not the right person in your organization. If you can't value them, then they're not the right person. Errors in judgment. Specific conclusions that are made based on assumptions have far-reaching effect on your teams. Ineffective business strategies, and what happens here? Poor fiscal policies, poor management of resources. You can't afford your team. That kills a team. Now you can't afford to pay them. So business decisions that are affecting your bottom line or affecting the organization's bottom line are going to impact how you support the team that you have and advance them and move them forward, give them raises, do things like that. If you're making assumptions in your business strategy, you're going to kill your team. Ineffective personnel management decisions that lead to attrition. That's a fancy way of saying you're not dealing with your problems effectively, and so you end up keeping the bad employees and losing the good ones. Happens a lot. It also creates legal exposure and other distractions. If you're not doing, especially from an HR perspective, you're going to have employees sue you. It's going to happen. So you're creating so many distractions in your organization that you end up managing and leading or dealing with that are just not what you signed up for. And then it flows into organizational toxicity. Losing the good employees due to not dealing with unresolved conflict, like I said, inability to attract and keep employees you desire, and then feeling trapped to keep what you have. Has anybody ever seen that? Well, I can't get rid of them. If I get rid of them, I ain't got nobody else. If they go, who's going to be here? Right? So inability can prevent leaders from actually leading and leaves them in perpetual reaction mode. You are just constantly putting out fires. It's one fire after another, one person problem after another, and you can't figure out why you can't get out of the cycle. If you're in HR or HR management, then why can this department not get it straight? Why am I hearing from this same department all the time? There's a systemic issue in there. Probably goes back to assumptions. Can you think of a specific habit or behavior that you have observed or performed that led to disengagement or difficulty in attracting or keeping employees? Have you had people problems? Has anybody had people problems? Let me see if you've had people problems. Okay? How many of you have stepped back? How many of you have stepped back and said, okay, what are the habits or what led us? I've had employees walk out the door and I'm like, man, I hated to lose that person. And I really hated to see them go. And then I had to sit back and go, what did I do? What am I allowing in this organization where that person felt disengaged, disenfranchised, So what are some of those specific habits or behaviors that you've observed? What are some of the things that you've observed? I can give you a few, but I'd love to know what you think.
Not giving feedback, not listening to employees when they're talking about what's going on, just kind of passing over what they're saying and, oh, we'll give it a thought, and that's it.
Yeah.
Not following through on what you promised to your employees.
Oh, yeah. Big one. Big one. Yeah. What else? What are some other habits that you've observed? Say that again? Micromanagement. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which is a trust indicator. It's also predicated on fear and some other things. Yep. I've been using the word predicated a lot today. I feel like I've worn it out. Any other things? Yes?
Lack of proper training.
We make assumptions that people know. If you find yourself using two words, they should know or they ought to know, training issue. If you have sufficiently trained them and done what you need to do with them, it's one of two things. They're either not able or they're not willing. And if they're not able, then they need to either find a different seat of the bus or be on a different bus. You can love them here, love them somewhere else. Or, if they're not willing, then that's insubordination and they're not living up to the standards of the company and they need to move to they need to move on. So what's at stake here? It's just costs time and money and effort, energy. Just wears you out. Makes you not want to show up to work. My first company that I started, after 3.5 years of running it, I built a company I hated. I hated my own company. Didn't hate my people, but I didn't like the company I built. Fortunately, someone else liked it and came along and bought it. Thank you, Lord. But I learned a lot from that. Cost time, effort, and money. So here are some examples. We assume a colleague understands the task without clarifying instructions. We're not training clearly. And we assume that market trends, oh no, it's an election year. Oh, it's a this. Oh, it's a that. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. The market's up. The market's down. We're doing this. We're doing that. This is what's happening. Jobs are up. Jobs are down. What, 10% in the market from Friday to Monday because of a jobs report? The whole stock market is predicated on assumptions. Don't get me started on that. So here are some strategies for success, and these should not be a surprise to you. Self-awareness. Every single person in this room has already indicated you know what we're talking about here, and you feel it. You feel this, but you may also feel trapped not knowing what to do about it. How do I get out? This is just the way it is. It is what it is. Sometimes it is what it is, but the reality is sometimes it doesn't have to be. It just doesn't have to be what it is. It can be different. We have to be aware of that. Practicing empathy. Somebody mentioned that too. You got to care. You got to actually care about what's going on. You can't just gloss over people and, okay, here comes Karen again. Right? Hopefully there's no Karens. Are there any Karens in the room? Just, sorry. So seek feedback and clarity. Stay curious, not critical. Stay open. You don't have to execute on every idea, but listening to people is a good thing. So let's wrap this up. Very simply, two practices I think you can put in today. You want to enhance your growth, you have to pursue organizational clarity. Top to bottom, you have to know that your organization is operating with clarity, and then I'll add to that consistency. If you are not, that is the area where assumptions will show up. That's the proverbial crack in the foundation that's going to let assumptions grow, which will breed distrust and ultimately kill your team. It may not kill your team, it just might make them, in the Princess Bride version, mostly dead. Just might make them mostly dead, which is almost worse than killing them, because they're just disheartened, not productive, not engaged. They don't care. They're just coming to get a paycheck. Their heart's not in it. And they're there. You got warm bodies, but they're not producing and they're not living up to the vision that you had. And then maintain the examination of biases. I realize we went, like I said, a little nerdy on that, but those biases are the kind of the scientific brain science behind why we do what we do, and we have to pay attention to those things. Now, we've gotten a little obsessive about biases in the last few years, like unconscious bias. You've probably heard of this, right? Where you don't even know that you're thinking that you're biased, but you're biased. That's confusing to me. But it's a thing and it's a discussion, but the actual biases that we mentioned here, these are the things that you can hang your hat on. Impact on relationships. You do those last two things, you will build trust, you will prevent conflict, and you will begin to prevent attrition in your organization. Is it easier or harder? Is it easier to hire somebody new or keep somebody? It's a whole lot more costly to hire new. A whole lot more costly. Most of our assumptions have outlived their uselessness. Okay? The ability of your organization to become aware, improve, and manage assumption will invariably have a cascade effect on all areas of communication, teamwork, and problem solving. And in that way, you will succeed by not killing your team. Thank you.